I just got back from Gen Con 2024. Here's some really good news from Gen Con. On Friday night, So You Want to Be a Game Master won the Gold ENNIE for Best RPG-related Product. And the Alexandrian won a Gold ENNIE for Best Online Content. So that's right, this is now an officially ENNIE Award-winning YouTube channel. I'd just like to thank you for being a part of this community. As I said in my acceptance speech, I believe that the strength of online content can really be judged by the community that supports it and is supported by it. I'm incredibly grateful to this entire community. YouTube subscribers, Twitch chat, Alexandrian readers, Discord members, book lovers, and of course, my patrons on Patreon for being just so incredibly awesome and supportive. Thank you. But now for some bad news from Gen Con. I can't talk about this book. During the convention, I heard from multiple creators that they were receiving legal threats for talking about the 2024 D&D Player's Handbook. Then, last night, Jordan, the PH is silent, reported on social media that Wizards of the Coast had issued a copyright strike on his PHB video. This is a really big deal. If you get 3 copyright strikes on your YouTube channel, your channel gets permanently deleted. Just gone forever. This is obviously completely devastating to any creator. I've included a link to Jordan's channel in the font of all knowledge down below if you'd like to check out his stuff in solidarity. Now, I'm guessing this whole mess will eventually be sorted out. Hopefully without any more damage than leaving a bad taste in people's mouths. The wild thing is that most of what I've heard isn't even affecting people like me who bought the book from Hasbro at Gen Con. It's primarily affecting creators who were given early access to the book. These creators were already being kind of bizarrely embargoed from discussing certain aspects of the book, even after most of their embargo dropped on August 1st, even though, again, people like me could just buy the book without any sort of NDA or embargo affecting us at all. And then WotC started changing the rules and making legal threats. Could I legally talk about this book? Almost certainly. Would it be worth the legal hassle and potential devastation to this channel? Probably not. Has this kinda killed any enthusiasm I had for the new PHB? Yeah, it really has. I mean, I'm definitely not interested in promoting it right now. You know what though? In So You Want to Be a Game Master, I talk about a bunch of other awesome role-playing games you could be playing. So let's talk about those instead. Maybe 5th edition D&D isn't quite right for you, but you'd like to try something a little similar in the fantasy vein. This is Pathfinder from Paizo Press, specifically the 1st edition Beginner's Box, which was based on 3rd edition D&D. The current 2nd edition of the game heavily revises it into a more streamlined, tightly designed package. This is Blades in the Dark by John Harper. This is the game where everybody gets to play the rogue. Long ago, some heroes failed to save the world, the sun went dark, and now you get to run heists in a post-apocalyptic urban fantasy. In addition to your characters, you also get to design, run, and advance your criminal crew, introducing you to organizational-based play. You know what? This is Ars Magica by Mark Reinhagen and Jonathan Tweet. Everybody gets to play the wizard. In addition to your wizards, you also get to design and run your arcane covenant through troop-style play. Now, some games I don't have physical copies of. This includes Shadow Dark by Kelsey Dion. This game also just won a bunch of Gold ENNIEs at Gen Con. Kelsey's aim was to create something compatible with 5th edition that was also infused with the best stuff from D&D's golden age, that the modern game, left out. And the result is brilliant. If Golden Age play doesn't tickle your fancy, but dungeon crawling is what you've got an itch for, check out GURPS Dungeon Fantasy, which is adapted for the GURPS Universal Role-Playing Game by Sean Punch. Dungeon Fantasy is for simulationists and extreme character customizers. If you'd like to dip your toes into storytelling games, on the other hand, this is Luke Crane's Burning Wheel. We'll talk about storytelling games more in an upcoming video, but if you want a completely different approach to fantasy tabletop gaming, check this one out. It is in depth. On that note, maybe you're ready to try out something completely different from D&D. This is Monty Cook's Numenera. I think it's probably my favorite RPG. It's a science fantasy setting 1 billion years in the future. Earth has seen 8 mega-civilizations rise and fall, and a neo-renaissance now picks through the ruins, rediscovering what was lost. It gave birth to the Cypher system, which I also absolutely love. This is Sean McCoy's Mothership, an amazing science fiction horror game. This video is actually preempting my unboxing video of Mothership, so if you'd like to see what's inside here, come back for that. I actually already delayed that video once in order to make space for Quinn's Quest review of the game, which I'll go ahead and link in the font of all knowledge if you just can't wait. Since filming the unboxing, I've read and played Mothership, and I love it to death. Pun intended. So I really hope my players love being scared because I'm going to run a lot of this. Greg Stafford's Pendragon, on the other hand, is a classic masterpiece. Step into the legends of King Arthur and play Knights of Camelot in a campaign specifically designed to span decades of character time. Here we have Jeremy Keller's Tech Noir, a cyberpunk game with a radically inventive game system in which you change the world by using verbs to push adjectives. For example, when you shoot someone with a gun, you might push the bloodied adjective onto them. And the mechanics completely back up your creativity in coining and pushing adjectives by giving them real, meaningful teeth in the rules of the game. The game also features an incredibly cool conspiracy-driven plot mapping mechanic on the GM side of the screen. I loved this one so much that I bought it. Literally. When Jeremy was leaving the RPG industry, I bought the rights to Tech Noir so that I could make sure it stayed available, and it still is. This, over here, is Night's Black Agents by Kenneth Haidt. It's a vampire thriller in which retired secret agents discover that vampires are real. After creating your own unique vampire variant, very creative tools like the Conspiramid empower the GM to run a vast global conspiracy and empower the players to take it down in whatever way they want. Over here we also have Eclipse Phase, originally by Rob Boyle and Brian Cross. This is the second edition. This is a transhuman kitchen sink space opera set 10 years after the fall of Earth, with elements ripped from the pages of cutting-edge science fiction. Eclipse Phase is going to let you play everything from The Expanse, to Stargate, to Werner Vinge, to Peter Klein, to Altered Carbon. Here's another classic, Call of Cthulhu, originally created by Sandy Peterson. Based on the horror fiction of H.P. Lovecraft, the players take on the roles of investigators seeking to unravel eldritch mysteries. Call of Cthulhu also features some of the best all-time campaigns published for any RPG, like one of my favorites, The Masks of Nyarlathotep. I mentioned dipping your toes into storytelling games earlier. If you want to instead dive straight into the deep end, check out The Quiet Year by Avery Alder. This is a map-based storytelling game in which the players collaboratively create a post-apocalyptic civilization using prompts generated from a normal deck of playing cards. Microscope by Ben Robbins lets you explore an epic history entirely of your own making, using the rules of the game to build an ever-expanding, non-linear chronology. I've actually known multiple people who have used games of The Quiet Year or Microscope to actually create the setting for their next RPG campaign. Heck, you could even do both. Play a game of The Quiet Year to create an amazing starting area for your campaign, and then grab Microscope to delve even further into the deep lore of what you've created in The Quiet Year. Or how about a game of shock social science fiction by Joshua A.C. Newman? This game is intensely focused on the speculative in speculative science fiction. Each player takes on the role of both their protagonist and also the antagonist for the player sitting on their right, a technique I talked about adapting to other games in the Spectacular Sidekicks video. Stephen Dewey's 10 Candles is another of my absolute all-time favorites. 10 days ago, the sun went out, and then they came. The survivors have learned to stay in the light. You play this game by candlelight, snuffing out one of the 10 candles at the end of each scene until the very last candle goes out and the game comes to an end. A similar, but also completely different game is Alice is Missing from designer Spencer Stark. This is a stunningly beautiful and utterly unforgettable storytelling game. What makes it unique is that it's played entirely via text message with your fellow players, creating an incredibly immersive experience. I've played it twice with different groups, and each game was profound. Every player was deeply affected, and several texted the group the next morning to say that they dreamed about the events of the game. Now, if you're interested in games I've actually designed myself, you might want to check out Infinity, the space opera kitchen sink RPG based on the Infinity Miniatures game from Corvus Belli. This game notably includes a 3-part conflict resolution engine with fully integrated systems for warfare, psy-war, and info-war. At the other end of the spectrum, Matthew Hansen's Magical Kitty Save the Day is designed for first-time role players and first-time GMs. I worked with Matthew and also Michelle Nephew on the second edition of the game, which you can see here, which included writing a choose-your-own-adventure graphic novel that lets you start playing within minutes of opening the box, along with a plethora of guides for running your first game. Every kitty has a magical power, every kitty has a human, and every human has a problem. You need to use your powers to solve the human's problems. Unfortunately, those problems include witches, alien invasions, and hyper-intelligent raccoons. Now, my point with all of this is that there are lots and lots of amazing games. I mean, I've barely scratched the surface here. Whether you're tired of being scandalized or just thinking it might be time for something fresh and new, well, now's the perfect time. I'll link to my reviews for several of these games in the font of all knowledge. I also have a video that talks about how you can learn and play new RPGs, and I'll link to that too. It's a lot easier than you think, particularly because most of these games don't feature 600 plus pages of rules that you need to read before you can play. Many of them you could read today and play tomorrow, or even tonight. Good gaming. This is Justin Alexander, and I'll see you at the table.